Hello, my name is Dan Skip Allen, and this is My Life, My Love 50 Years in Film, where I am celebrating my 50 years of existence, culminating in the last episode, which will be out just before my 50th birthday in January of next year. So, what this is myself and a guest or two guests celebrating our favorite movies from a given decade. And I've already done 3 episodes from 1974 always up to 2003. So this is going to be episode 4, starting with 2004 and going to 2023, 2013. And like I said, I can't do this long. It'd be boring if I sat here and said, oh, my favorite movie of whatever year is this movie. And then little by little just go on down the list. It's more fun. It's much more fun if I have someone I can bounce off of and their movies don't line up with mine and they comment on mine and so forth. And I enjoy that aspect of this much more. So that's why I always have a guest or two. And on this episode, I got two guests. I just happen to have two guests again this episode. My two good buddies, which I've been on their show. They have a show which I think is one of the best shows on the internet right now. It's called Picture This. And I've been on there 4 times. And I just couldn't ask for two better guys to celebrate a decade of films with me than these guys. And I have Chadwick Webb, super good guy, big Boston Red Sox fan, just like me, and Dylan Randazzo, who's supports the evil empire, but he's a good guy, so I can get past that. I can get past the fact that he's a Yankees fan. I give him crap. He gives me crap. Hey, that's what fandoms are all about.
Exactly.
And so forth.
Exactly.
So if you can't give your friends crap about their sports teams, whatever, I mean, what kind of friends are you? But Chad, what do you think about this?
About the concept in general, I think it's awesome. Maybe the day that I turn 50, maybe I'll do something similar. Got a little bit while to go, but I got less time than Dylan does before I reach there. So that's I also like how this is kind of like I think this has played into Picture This too, where it's like Dan a little bit older, then me, then Dylan. There's like a gap of years between each of us, so our perspectives are very different. So I think this is going to be very interesting to see which movies we all pick.
And Dylan, what are your thoughts on being on and this whole thing that I'm doing?
Yeah, this is a great project. I keep my letterbox list of my favorite films for every year I've been alive, but like that's always so subjective, and I think it's fun to like just go through every year and really think about what, like, especially personally, what speaks to you the most. Maybe not the best film of that year, but the one that kind of connects to you the most. And I had fun just going through this decade or this span of 10 years looking at all those movies. And I'm excited to hear your memories with these movies, Dan, because these were this was like the time period where I was really becoming a film fan for the first time. So a lot of my film growth happened in this span of movies and years. So that's why I'm very honored to be on this episode particularly. But of course, talking with Chad and Dan, I mean, it's like the most fun part of my life. So
yeah, and I just wanted to reiterate here, I may not have just one film because it's so hard. There's 1 year in this batch that I really wanted to do 3, and I just was like pulling my hair out saying, should I take one of my other ones out and I said, no, I already did this. I set this up so far in advance. I'm going to stick with the other film. I'm not going to tell you guys what year it is, but some of the years I do have 2, and it's just because you just can't do just one film. It's just so hard. Mm-hmm. And also, when there's 500 movies that come out every year, narrowing it down to just 1 or 2 isn't easy. And like you said, it's what speaks to you in a given year or 2 or 10 or whatever, you know what I mean? And from 74 till now, you'd be interested to see what I mean, if you guys go back and listen to some of the other episodes, it's interesting to see my transition from then till now and what we're going on now. But let's get going. We've already been here a little while, and I want to get going. I'll tell you, in 2004, I was drinking a lot. I was coaching football. I was coaching basketball. I was going out and hanging out at bars a lot. And in a movie that really spoke to me a lot at that time in my life. I was probably in my early 20s, and was because I had friends and we were going out, we're hanging out, they had their girlfriends or their wives or whatever. And in a movie where, and I've been to a couple weddings at that time in my life, in a movie that really spoke to me about friends and doing something for another and taking your friends somewhere and trying to celebrate their impending nuptials, in a movie that just was just, I think, amazing. It's called Sideways. And Sideways is basically this guy played by Miles, played by Paul Giamatti. He takes his buddy to wine country to celebrate his impending nuptials, but they don't take his wife. So they go, they're enjoying wine country, and they meet these two ladies in wine country played by Sandra Oh and, oh God, I know her name. I have to look her up right now. I hate doing this, man. This is the worst when you have to look something up. I have it right here. Guys. It's
okay. 50 years of movies, like you said, there's 500 that come out every single year. So
yeah.
I don't blame you, Dan.
Virginia Madsen. Virginia Madsen is the other girlfriend, and Thomas Hayden Church plays the friend who's about to get married. And of course, the one guy, Paul Giamatti, he's out there trying to drink wine and take it easy. He's got to stress. But the other guy, even though he's getting married, he's trying to hit on all these other girls and stuff. And it's just like people that I knew that were football coaches or buddies of mine. We'd be going somewhere and they'd be married, or getting married, and they'd be hitting on other girls and stuff. We'd be getting drunk at bars and stuff. So this movie really, really kind of played off on my life when I was growing at that point in my life. But the wine aspect, I'm not a wino, and I don't know a lot about wine, but Pinot Grigio, some of the scenes are just so funny. He goes F Pinot and all this kind of stuff. Like, so if you're into wine, this is probably going to be right up your alley. But I had other things about it regarding the relationships and the friends and that sort of stuff. And I just replaced the wine with beer. And it's kind of like a story of me and my buddies. You know what I mean? We take a vacation to Clearwater, or go to Jacksonville, or go to Daytona and just spend a time on the beach or something, But yeah, I think Alexander Payne, ironically enough, has another movie coming out this year starring Paul Giamatti called The Holdovers. So, interesting enough, we got two Alexander Payne movies, one coming out this year and 2004. So, Chad, take it away. Is this something that you would have on your list, or do you got something else, or what are your thoughts on Sideways?
Sideways specifically, I actually haven't seen. I know it's like a big one. I think I started at one time, but it's just one that I just couldn't get into right away. But I know there's a lot of people who love this movie, and I do like Alexander Payne a lot as a director. There's just a lot of movies by him that I really enjoy. But I do know that this film is actually kind of very influential, because that apparently that wine comment that Paul Giamatti made set back the industry of that specific wine for a while. So
Pinot.
How can one random comment by a guy in a movie set back an industry that hard? That's so crazy. For another movie, I'm between 2 or 3 years.
When I looked at 2004, I was like, Chad has a tough task ahead of him, because I know 3 of these are your all time.
I know I can only pick one, and I'm not gonna go all out. I have some honorable mentions. I'm gonna go with Shaun of the Dead. Right. Where is it? Right here. I just look down. It's the cricket bat. Shaun of the Dead. I was really gonna go with another one, but I'm gonna go with this one because I think this one is just one that kind of defined the decade, kind of almost. Whereas if you think about a lot of the movies from the 2000s, I feel like Shaun of the Dead is one of the most that's just stood the test of time. It's a small little indie film that Edgar Wright made. I literally just read a whole book about this, where it's the whole painful process of them actually getting this made, having to pitch it. No, it's going to be good. Trust me. And no one understood Edgar Wright's editing style. They were like, why do you have to get all of these shots? Why do you have to get a close up on everybody's face, like every single person, and the wave of support of people like Spaced fans who came to be extras as zombies for free, basically. Like I think they literally had to be like legally had to be paid like £1 or something like that each. But you know, this film is just kind of perfect. It's like a 90-minute film that's just everything in it is just kind of perfect. And if you take one thing out, I don't think it works. You know, all the characters are fantastic. All the jokes, it equally blends comedy and horror like at the same time. So you can just have fun, but also be scared while you're watching it. And it basically single-handedly brought back the zombie genre because of its like love for George Romero's zombie films. Whereas like the fast zombies were coming out of that time. Edgar's like, no. Edgar and Simon were like, no. Slow zombies. That's scarier. We're bringing this back. And you know, and then they were invited to be in a George Romero film, Land of the Dead. So I adore this film. It's endlessly rewatchable, and is just narrowly beat out a couple others that I was eyeing, but I adore Shaun of the Dead.
And I stand corrected. I stand corrected, guys. Okay, so if they want to drink Merlot, we're drinking Merlot. No, if anybody orders Merlot, I'm leaving. So it's Merlot, not Pinot. I got my wines mixed up. I'm not a wino. I said I'm not a wino. But
Me
yeah,
neither.
there's this whole about Merlot and whatnot in the movie. So I just wanted to correct myself on that. So people, you don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, Shaun of the Dead, good fun movie. I enjoyed it. I think of the what's it, the candy ice cream bar, Cornetto ice cream bar trilogy. I think that's my favorite one. Dylan, what do you got? What's your thoughts on Sideways?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen Sideways either. It's another one where I started to watch it. I was actually on a plane. I'm hearing impaired, so the loudness of the plane with the quietness and quaintness of an Alexander Payne movie just was not working. So I am gonna rewatch it. But from what I saw, I liked it, and I'm very excited for his new movie. And Shaun of the Dead, it's great. It's a classic in that genre. There's a reason it's so well regarded. My second favorite movie of all time came out in 2004. So I'm going to just say it right now. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is a movie that I think not only has the greatest screenplay ever written, just the language and the way it's all intercut, when things happen, how they happen, the order they happen, the nonlinear storytelling, the editing paired with the writing. But just what it has to say about love in general just has always stuck with me. I watched this for the first time the day after a breakup on a rainy day under my blanket in my childhood bedroom. You know, it kind of just was the perfect setting for that type of movie, and it just kind of really spoke to me. The way it's a science fiction film, but it still feels grounded in our reality. I think it's the greatest science fiction film ever made. I think it's the greatest romance ever made. I just think it speaks to me like no other film, except for one, being Singing in the Rain, my favorite of all time. But very different movies. But this is, I think, one of the greatest achievements in filmmaking. I think it's just so well done, so well crafted, and it doesn't ever give you a definitive answer, which I like. You know, it kind of explores every avenue of love without telling you this is how you should or shouldn't love someone, or this is who you should or shouldn't be with. It tells you, yeah, you should be with this one person because it's a soulmate, but they may destroy you. You may destroy each other, but at the end of the day, would you rather have not gone through it at all? And it's just such an interesting, you know, headspace to think about, and just seeing everything from Michel Gondry's visual point of view and then Charlie Kaufman's whimsical imaginative point of view from the writing, and Jim Carrey's great. I love whenever comedic actors go dramatic and you realize how good they are at both, and Kate Winslet as well, kind of giving a more spunky, not comedic, but a more upbeat performance than some of her other ones. So I just think it's a great show of versatility for those two as well. So Eternal Sunshine, I watched it again for this to make sure I loved it as much as I did, and I loved it even more. So that's a good sign. It's my second favorite film of all time, my favorite film that we'll probably talk about today.
Well, the thing of the matter is, I love Jim Carrey, and I've been wanting to try to get a Jim Carrey film on this list. And, you know, I kind of dropped the ball here, Dylan. I probably should have picked Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
I did it for you, Dan. I did it for
instead
you.
of Sideways, or I should have went with two. I had so many years where I went with two. I didn't want to go with two every year, you know, and I love Sideways so much, but I kind of did drop the ball a little bit. I probably should have went with a Jim Carrey movie here. I absolutely love Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I'm right with you. I think it's an amazing film, and there's so much going on. It just shows you Jim Carrey really has more than comedic chops, you know.
Mm.
But that, you know, that one scene where they're out and what is it? It's cold out. He says something to Kate Winslet. I forget the line of dialogue that he says. I just love that scene where he's just like screaming. I forget what the dialogue is there. Do you remember that scene?
The one where they're laying on the ice, or
is that what it is? They're yelling. Like he starts yelling or something. I don't know. I can't remember.
It might be the one where the house is like fading away on the sand. Yeah, that's lovely. I don't know the dialogue per se, but I don't know the dialogue because it's one of those movies I don't watch a lot because I don't want to ruin it. You know, I watch it every few years to kind of savor it, like a good wine. Full circle. So
yeah, back to Sideways. All right, let's go on to 2005. I'll tell you what. There's two people that were just on fire at this time in their careers, and those two people were Ron Howard. Well, three people. Well, maybe even I don't know, five people. That's funny. Ron Howard, Russell Crowe, Renee Zellweger are four people. Paul Giamatti are all on fire at this point in their career. They're doing all kinds of Oscar-worthy type of work, and a movie that kind of fell a little bit through the cracks, which to me is like, I don't understand how it could have, you know, and you guys know me by now. If you go back on previous episodes of My Love 50 Years in Film, I've got boxing films on my list already. And I haven't had one for quite a while because boxing is probably my favorite cinematic sport. It's not my favorite sport, but it's my favorite cinematic sport. Mm-hmm. Boxing movies, there's something about boxing movies that just make for great dramatic films. And Cinderella Man, to me, when I saw it, it just blew me away. And I've seen it multiple times. And Russell Crowe as Jim Braddock, and the story of how he's on top one moment and the next he's sharing bologna with his daughter who's starving and he's not, and he's going to work on the docks and they lose their house and they're living in a hovel in the side of the street. Then he gets this life or death like situation where he could take this match. Everybody knows he's going to lose, but if he wins, he gets another match, and if he wins, he gets another one. Then eventually gets the fight against the champion Max Baer. You know, we've seen that article in the newspaper. If you're a sportsman, the dancing bear. You know, I'll tell you what. I think Cinderella Man is one of the best boxing films of all time. It's definitely in the top 5 Ron Howard movies, and it's in my top 10 Russell Crowe movies. I love Cinderella Man more than I could talk about right now, but I could talk about it all day, but we don't have all day. Chad, you got any thoughts on Cinderella Man? What do you got for 2005?
I'll pass it on to Dylan, but I will say, he can go second, but for Cinderella, I can go if you want, but
yeah, it's fine.
Sure. Doesn't matter. Whatever.
Cinderella Man, I haven't seen. So I don't know if Dan and I are going to be on the same wavelength at all on like any of this, to be honest, but that's okay because, you know, like I said, Dan comes from, you know, a slightly different generation. So he just loves different movies than I do, but that's just a lot for me to discover. And maybe I'll stump Dan with something. I don't know, maybe not, but you know, 2005, I'm going to go with the movie that should have won Best Picture. I'm going to go with Brokeback Mountain.
Great film.
Yeah. The thing, like when I was growing up, you know, as a dumb kid in high school, all I can hear people saying was it's the gay cowboy film. Like, I feel like this movie just got so undercut. It's kind of like, I hope I don't spoil no, this is much later. The Shape of Water, where it's like the fish sex movie. So I feel like, you know, a lot of movies will get undercut by people just saying, you know, like what do you call it? A dismissive phrase about a movie, but it's so much more than that. It's, you know, this movie is about love. It's about forbidden love. It's about tragedy. It's about all of that, but I think this movie says more about love than I think most do. And, you know, when the people can't have it towards the end of the movie, you you kind of like feel that loss so much, and the love is very, very deep. And I know it's very mushy, but you know, I really feel that. There's a moment at the end of the film that just gets me every single time, and it's when Innes smells a piece of clothing, an article of clothing, and it's like, you know, that moment, the movie's like kind of built up to a moment like that, and someone just like looking at another person's things and just knowing that, you know, that love was like so deep. And for a movie like that to lose to Crash, which I think is just, you know, it's just not a very good movie. I really like the song that that movie had, but other than that, I don't really like anything about the movie. But Brokeback definitely should have won. I think it was the best of that year. At least it was my favorite of that year. And I forgot to do my 2004 honorable mentions. But yeah, Brokeback I think is it's beautifully acted. Jake Gyllenhaal and Heath Ledger really just crush it there, and you know, I believe the love story with them, and you know, I like to see non tragic gay centric films, but you know, this one, you know, I think is really incredible.
Well, going back to what I did last time with Dylan, tell me, I'm so stupid. How did I not pick Brokeback Mountain with Cinderella Man? I'm dumb. I should have picked Brokeback Mountain but then I have two every year. I think this is an amazing film.
You're allowed.
This is an amazing film, Chad. This is a great pick. Great pick on your part. I think 4 fantastic performances: Michelle Williams, Anne Hathaway, Heath Ledger, and Jake Gyllenhaal. I mean, I'm a Western guy. I love Westerns, even though this is kind of like a modern Western. I don't know. What's the 60s Western? What is it? 70s Western? When does this take place? I forget. But I can't remember.
63. Summer of 63.
I thought it was in the 60s. Yeah. Yeah, I should have. Dang it, man. God, it's so hard. It's so hard. All right, go ahead, Dylan. I'm sorry.
No, it's. I don't have a ton else to add. I actually did also pick Brokeback Mountain as my pick, just because this year I was only 7 years old. So like the movies I was seeing that stuck with me from a child, like I love, and I don't know if we're allowed to bring up other films, but like Revenge of the Sith was the first Star Wars movie I ever saw in theaters, and I loved it, and I still love it. Do I love it because of how and when I saw it, or do I love it because it's actually a 5-star film? I don't know. But Brokeback Mountain, I know, is like a 5-star film. It is excellent, well crafted, well acted, and yes, Chad did say like we have gotten more representation from gay directors and actors as time has gone on. But in the context of 2005, I think, you know, it was just still becoming taboo, you know, and I like how this kind of was a big step toward that, to see the Academy at least nominate it and give it a Best Directing Oscar. You know, it could have gone the extra mile to award it the win. It wasn't ready yet, but I think it's an important cultural piece because of that, because it finally got other people to start looking at gay cinema or cinema about gay themes in that light.
LGBT centric cinema.
And not just looking at it like, you know, kind of your But I'm a Cheerleaders, which are these more satirical indie things, or, you know, actually looking at it in a prestige lens, which I think is important. So it was my pick as well. I think it's got some of the most soul-shattering emotional scenes I've seen in film. So yeah.
Yeah, and of course, one of the greatest quotes of all time.
Right.
What was that? I
don't know how to quit you or something.
I don't know how to quit you. Yeah, that's on the AFI's 100 most.
Dan, I will say, I do also enjoy Cinderella Man. It's a great pick because the best sports movies aren't about the sport. It's about something else that is tangential with the sport. And this is about the Great Depression. It's a Great Depression film. It also happens to be a boxing film, which is, I think, why it's so special. And I agree. It's one of, I'm not a big Ron Howard fan, but this is definitely one of my favorites of his. So I agree. It's a great pick.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to 2006. And I actually, I do have 2 this year. I couldn't not have 2 this year. There's going to be some years going forward I'm going to have 2. I just can't narrow it down. But you know, you see the hat. Everybody knows I'm a Boston guy. You know, and my favorite director of all time is Martin Scorsese. And this isn't my favorite Martin Scorsese film, but it's one of my favorite films of 2006, and it's based on a series of films called Infernal Affairs, which was based on Internal Affairs with Richard Gere. And instead of But instead of doing police in like LA or Asian police or whatever, Marty decided, oh, we're going to take this story to Boston, and we're going to turn the tables on Boston police and the Boston gangs and stuff. And I think it worked perfectly. I mean, absolutely perfectly. This story of switching, putting the good guy in with the bad guys and putting the bad guy in with the quote unquote good guys. And Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio are fantastic in this. Mark Wahlberg is amazing, and he's got an Academy Award nomination for this. I love Jack Nicholson as Frank Costello. And if you don't know, he was basically playing Whitey Bulger. Whitey Bulger was the head of the Irish mob in Boston. He basically ruled and corrupted Boston for 25 years before he went on the lam and hid. And they found him in a hotel room in California when he was like 80 years old. What's going on here? You guys saying something here?
Chad was just asking me what I picked, and I was telling him in the private chat. Yeah, so we can pick the same one, right? That's what you said earlier.
Yeah, of course you can pick the same one. Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I encourage you guys to pick the same thing as me. But most of the time, my guests have picked something different. You know, that's the fun part of me doing this, is bringing guests on, because I get to see how you guys disagree with me or agree with me, which in that case is fun. But The Departed, Best Picture. I mean, look, I don't want to get too crazy about this, but the year before, Hustle and Flow came out, and it won an Academy Award for Best Song for this band, these rappers called what do they call these rappers? Oh, damn it, I can't think of the name of these rappers. I keep wanting to say Tu Wang Fu, but it's not. It's Wang. Walmart sells the shirts.
Wu-Tang Clan?
Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah,
Wu-Tang Clan. Wu-Tang Clan won an Oscar for the Hustle and Flow song. It's hard out here for a pimp. Yeah. And when they got up on the stage, they said, 2 for us, 0 for Martin Scorsese. And of course, that lit a fire under the Academy. Whether The Departed deserved it or didn't deserve it, they were going to make sure they were going to reward Martin Scorsese with some Oscars the next time they had a chance. And they did. Best Picture and Best Director for The Departed. And like I said, a lot of other things were nominated. And it's just a fantastic cat and mouse game. And everybody in it was great. So my second film is a film by Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu. It's called Babel. And if anybody knows anything about me, I don't own any guns. And I have this thing about guns, and I don't like special people that are irresponsible having to own guns. And so I don't own guns. And I think a lot of people in this country shouldn't own guns, because I think people don't know how to be responsible with guns. So this movie is basically about how one gun can ruin so many lives. And it starts out with a hunter in Korea and ends up in Iraq or Kuwait or wherever, where these kids are out shooting. Their father bought the gun, and then they shoot, and it hits a passenger on a bus. And the passenger basically is I think that she dies, and that passenger's husband is Brad Pitt, and the wife is Cate Blanchett. And they're on this trip of the Middle East to try to reconnect with themselves because they're having problems, domestic problems at home. So they have a nanny who's back at home taking care of their kids, but she's supposed to attend the wedding of her niece or nephew or somebody. So she takes the kids to Mexico, and it's just a lot is going on in this movie, all because of one gun. And it's just, I think the lesson in this movie is we need to start looking at what the damage and who all the people that get hurt with weapons that don't have the right to have weapons, illegally have weapons. And I think I don't want to come across as like this political stance, but this is the reason why I love this movie so much. And Alejandro, I think this is better than some of Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu's later films, like Birdman. I don't think Birdman is as good as Babel. I think Babel blows Birdman out of the water. 21 Grams blows Birdman out of the water. But those are my two films from 2006. Chad, or no, Dylan, you go for. I'm sorry to keep going. It's just I'm just programmed to go that way.
I'm just a favorite. It's fine. I get
it. I know you're both my favorites, but
No.
that's a whole nother thing. Dylan, you go.
Yeah, I've never seen Babel, but I've been wanting to. But I have seen The Departed. I obviously love. I'm a Scorsese fan, but I think this is actually like a good film from him, not just like, oh, it's just another Scorsese. Like I think it's genuinely great. One choice, the rat at the end being the exception. I think and he's even regretted it since. But yeah, no, I love that film. Love the acting. Love the twists and turns. But speaking of twists and turns, I picked something that is all about illusions, all about magic, and that is The Prestige, which is until 2 weeks ago, maybe my favorite Nolan film. I love his way of telling nonlinear stories and the way he kind of uses this as a way of kind of making his own cinematic magic, but not in the way you'd expect. It's not about the spectacle as much as it is about the illusion of story and truth and rivalry and betrayal and toxic ambition and all that. I think it's just such a well-made film. Every time I watch it, I seemingly forget how it ends and I rediscover it every time, which I love. I kind of hate when you watch a movie again and again, but you remember the twist. This is a film that by the time we're halfway through, I forget what the twist is because I'm so engrossed in it. So when the twist comes, I'm like, oh, yep, they got me again. It's like seeing the same great magic trick over and over again. You still want to watch it because you want to find out how he did it. That's exactly what this film is for me as a film fan trying to dissect it. A lot of great films came out this year, but this is the one where I feel like every element comes together the best. It's not just the best told story. It's not just the best acted, shot, designed, but it's the marriage of all of it to me that makes it so dazzling. And yeah, it's quite amazing.
Yeah, no, The Prestige. I mean, I don't know if you know, but I love Christopher Nolan.
Yeah,
the guy.
We'll talk about more of his films later, I'm sure.
yeah. But no, I do love The Prestige. It's not like tippity top of my list of Nolan, but I do love him. Chad, what do you got? You got any thoughts on films I picked?
Yeah. I also haven't seen Babel. A lot of the big, I don't know, but Babel, Munich, a lot of the ones that are just like the name of like a place. I haven't seen is Babel the name of a place? I think it is.
Well, it's considered like a la Babel. It's like that whole section of the Middle East is.
Yeah, so a lot of these types of movies I just haven't seen. Unfortunately, I need to get around to it. The Departed, I don't love. I'm not nowhere near on the same level as you guys, and I don't want to sit here and like be like super negative about The Departed or anything like that. I need to give it a rewatch at some point. I know it's like it's a Boston movie. It's got some of my favorite actors. I have kind of a iffy relationship with the Scorsese films, and this is the one that I don't enjoy watching more than like a lot of other his movies. But I've always said, and I know you guys, well, I don't know about Dylan actually, but I know Dan is gonna disagree that this other movie should have won Best Picture, Little Miss Sunshine.
No, it's not. I
adore Little Miss Sunshine.
It's good. I like it.
This is my pick, Dan.
I know it's your pick. I'm just saying. Oh, you're just saying to me. It's. Do you think you agree that it's the best picture? And I don't agree.
Oh, I know you don't agree.
Yeah,
I don't agree either. But I love the film. Love the film.
Oh, I love the film as well. Oh yeah.
I think Little Miss Sunshine is just like one of the best movies I've ever seen. So even like just outside of Best Picture land, I just adore this one. This is like a top 100 type of film for me. I just love all the performances. I'm a big Paul Dano fan. And this is like probably his first performance, I think, or one of, if not the first. And just like his like breakout in this movie, I just think is so incredible with just, finding out that he can't do the things that he wanted to do. And like every character's interesting. Something's going on with them. Shenanigans happen, and it's all to get the littlest daughter to a beauty pageant. And then when she gets there, it's really funny too. So there's a lot of comedy, a lot of drama with this one, and I just think it like blends all of that together, and it's just really well made. I don't really even like Greg Kinnear all that much, but I like him in this movie. Toni Collette's in it. She's just consistently been fantastic in pretty much everything. Steve Carell shows a really good like dramatic side because he's gay and he's like struggling with that whole side of himself. So yeah, there's just a lot to this movie that I think is pretty incredible. A lot of stuff going on, maybe kind of like The Departed, but just very, very different movie. And I think that's why I vibe with this one a lot more than I do with the other one. Although I have the is it Infernal Affairs? I have that like on Criterion. I'll probably give that a watch and then rewatch The Departed and reassess to see if I like that one more than I have. But Little Miss Sunshine would have been my pick for Best Picture. I absolutely adore that movie. So it's my pick for 2006.
No, I actually I came that close to doing a review, RIP review for Alan Arkin when he passed away recently. And I'm right with you. I love Little Miss Sunshine, but I just like The Departed and Babel a little bit more than Little Miss. Like I said, I can't do 3 films every year. It's just this thing would be forever, But all right, we already went to Dylan, right? So we're going on to 2007 now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just double check. I forgot if I went to Dylan. I can't remember what I said 5 minutes ago. All right, so 2007. I just want to preface this 2007 with this. A lot of people have the opposite opinion of me. They're like these huge fans of There Will Be Blood and I'll be drinking your milkshake and all this kind of stuff. I'm the exact opposite. I think No Country for Old Men is the masterpiece, and it's a phenomenal film and deserved to win Best Picture. And the Coen brothers, I mean, were at the top of their game once again, in my opinion. And then Anton Chigurh by Javier Bardem is probably one of the best top 3-4 villains of all time, movie villains of all time, in my opinion. This year as a whole had like a bunch of Josh Brolin. Like he had a breakout year in 2000, like 5 movies out that year. And one of them was this. And then also Woody Harrelson is in there. It's a neo-Western, but it just got so much going on that I just, this whole thing with money and this whole hit and all this crazy stuff going on. I could be here forever talking about No Country for Old Men. I just absolutely love this movie. I think it's one of the best films. I think I definitely had it in my top 10 of the films of the decade when I did my top 10 of the decade that year of the 2000s. So we'll go back to Chad. Do you agree with me on No Country for Old Men? Or if not, do you have any thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, it's not my pick because I just want to choose something different. But yeah, it's definitely up there. Dylan and I actually covered this year on Picture This, and it's stacked, man. I mean, I was going through, and Dylan, are you going to pick the movie that I picked for number 1 that year?
No.
Okay, so I will say because that's
your number 1 was my number 5 that year.
Okay, that's right.
Like
because you wanted to do a rewatch and see if you liked it more. I remember. Yeah, because it was the second time I'd watch it. The movie I'm talking about is Michael Clayton. I'm not picking that as my number 1, but I adore it so much. And that was my number 1 of the year, but it was like kind of tied. It was like that. There Will Be Blood and No Country. I thought were all pretty fantastic, and I forget what the other 2 were, but
Juno and Atonement.
Oh, I fucking love Juno. Atonement was my number 5, and you love that one. We'll see if you picked it. But I'm going to pick, and I don't think this is going to be another surprise. I'm going to pick Hot Fuzz.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
We'll see. We'll see if I do the trilogy. But I'm going with Hot Fuzz because, yeah, I just think Edgar Wright just, like, speaks to me. I just think he is, like, one of the best filmmakers we've ever gotten, and he had to go on like this kind of grassroots way of becoming that. He had to like prove himself like so much. He did it with Shaun of the Dead. I already picked that one. And then I'm like, Hot Fuzz, there's a lot of people, not me necessarily, but there's a lot of people that think that Hot Fuzz is even better than Shaun of the Dead. And they're like, he's just honing his craft, getting better and better and better. And I think Hot Fuzz is just one of the best like buddy cop comedy, action comedies that we ever had. It's also a slasher film, so you can even put it in the horror genre if you wanted to. So it just blends so many different genres, but it's just a movie that like a film that like an auteur filmmaker made that's like obsessed with like every part. Like he edits all of his own movies along with like another editor, but he is so in his own style that every shot that they get is just him obsessively trying to get this, not in a Kubrick kind of way, not in a weird problematic way. He's always very respectful and his film sets are very fun, but he's always, trying to get those last shots so that he can have it for the edit. And then when he does it, he just edits it to perfection. I think I like Nick Frost, I think, in this one more than I do Shaun of the Dead, even because I just think he shows a lot more range and he's always getting better in every single film. So I don't know. This one is just so fun and just like really deep too. There's a lot of really deep stuff. There's always great messaging in his movies as well. But I don't know. I don't know how many other like buddy cop comedies you could actually even put above this one, to be honest. So
48 Hours.
I haven't seen that one, but one day I will. That's the Eddie Murphy one, right? That's what he left SNL to do, right? So, but yeah, I adore this movie. It's one of the best in the genre that it's parodying.
Lethal Weapon.
So I think that's why like I love these movies so much, is because it's like an homage to a genre, and then it ends up being one of the best in said genre. So same with Shaun of the Dead.
All right, Dylan, do you got any thoughts on No Country for Old Men, or do you agree or disagree with me?
Well, it's funny how you opened your argument for No Country, because I
want to make sure. I want to make sure I preface that in there because I know it's a hot take for me.
I'm drinking the milkshake though. I'm going There Will Be Blood. I love both those films. I think it is kind of, as Chad said, one of the most stacked years. The only one I didn't care for when we watched it was Michael Clayton because it all went over my head. But I told Chad, I was like, I need to rewatch this. I think Atonement is absolutely stunning. I think Juno's so fun. I think No Country for Old Men is a masterpiece. It's a really good film. It's just There Will Be Blood for me is like top 10 all time. Like I just love it so much. Daniel Day-Lewis, not my favorite actor, but the best actor, I think. And I think he is giving probably his best performance in this, either this or Lincoln, maybe. That's even debatable. He's so good in this, and it's just one of those films that it moves slow, but when it's over, I don't feel exhausted. I feel like fulfilled, like I ate the best meal ever, and I want to just go back. Like I love every second of it, as slow as it is, and I think it's such an intriguing story, despite being about oil, a thing I really don't care about anywhere else, but when I'm watching this movie, but I love it. It's so well done. Paul Dano's great in that as well. Just an all-timer for me. I think it's amazing. That milkshake scene is quoted for a reason. I think it's some of his best work. So, but I love the picks from both of you. They're great.
Two things, if I may, real quick. There Will Be Blood. Paul Dano, like you said, and that beautiful Johnny Greenwood score that kind of makes it into a horror film, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, all these horror not Hot Fuzz, but There Will Be Blood and No Country to some extent a horror film, I'd say.
And There Will Be Blood was based on a book called Oil.
There you go.
They just like I don't know if people go for a movie called Oil.
No, I wouldn't.
So they changed the name to There Will Be Blood, much more catchier title. But yeah, that was. I mean, I seen both films in theaters that year, and I just was like confused by what I was watching with There Will Be Blood. I was just like, what the hell did I just watch? But I did love Juno, did love Atonement. Oh God. Mm-hmm. I heard I was watching you guys the other day, and the guy, your guy that was on there, he was like, "Oh, Atonement's a piece of garbage." I was like, "What the hell? What the hell? What was that guy's name? The third guy on the episode.
We have a third guy on that one. I don't think we did.
Yeah, this past episode.
We had Matt on, but I
Matt.
He was about Atonement.
He said something about Atonement. He had a comment about Atonement. I can't remember. You guys, as far as you guys did it so long, you don't even remember what was said in there. But yeah. Okay, let's go on to 2008. Now, I once again have two for 2008. And I think the greatest comic book movie of all time is The Dark Knight. And I think it's one of the greatest films of all time. And I think when you look at the way Christopher Nolan made this movie and set it in reality, like it could actually take place in the world that existed. And Chicago was awesomely shot. I mean, cannot have been a perfect setting for this movie. The IMAX shots of this movie were incredible. The transition with Aaron Eckhart, but just the sinister nastiness of the Joker played by Heath Ledger. And real quick, a story that he asked Jack Nicholson about playing this character, and Jack Nicholson said, "You need to get some rest. You need to take it easy. You need to relax. This role will take over your life. It will take over your mind. You have to be careful." And we all know what happened with Heath Ledger. But so he did get a warning from Jack Nicholson about this role being all encompassing. It's one of those roles that just takes over your mind and your body. And we saw what he did in this role. He ended up winning an Oscar posthumously after he passed away. And he was married to Michelle Williams at the time. She went up there and she accepted the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for him. But I honestly, up until 2 weeks ago, this was my number one Christopher Nolan film of all time. And now I have another Christopher Nolan film as my number one Christopher Nolan film of all time. And I think, I'm not going to sit here and argue with people. I believe this is the greatest comic book movie of all time, bar none. It's just so many elements that are just incredible. I could be, like I said, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we're going to move on to my other pick, the movie that won Best Picture in 2008. And a movie that, when I saw this movie for the first time, I couldn't believe what I had just watched. I was so dumbstruck by the love, the craftsmanship by Danny Boyle of interweaving these flashbacks and forward storylines and going through the history of these two little boys and their girlfriend, or this girl, the one, and they grew up together, and how the trivia played in and became the answers to this boy. They were his life. They were the answers to the questions, were things that happened in his life. And I'm a massive Who Wants to Be a Millionaire fan. I never missed an episode of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. When Jimmy Kimmel did it like last year or whatever, I watched every episode last year. I tried, like you would not believe, to get on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I got into the mix one time and they didn't pick me. But I love trivia. You guys know I love trivia. But this, I think Danny Boyle will never make a movie as good as Slumdog Millionaire. Dev Patel is an absolute revelation in this movie. And I say it to this day, people just don't realize what a good actor Dev Patel is. And I like Frida Pinto. She's been in a couple different things since then, but it's a magnum opus for Danny Boyle. It's a masterpiece. It by far deserved to win Best Picture. The subtitles are incredible. The music is incredible. I could go on forever. Dylan, you go next because Chad went first last time.
I haven't seen Slumdog Millionaire since like I was young. No, since I was young. So I know. Don't worry. But I don't remember enough of it to be like that is the best. But of the nominees, that's definitely up there as a contender because, as we know, Dark Knight was snubbed, and that's why they extended it to 10 the next year. A lot of great movies that didn't get nominated for Best Picture, but I am going to pick The Dark Knight. Again, this is another repeat, only because I would not be the fan I am today of film without it. You know, every time I rewatch Nolan's films, this and The Prestige have battled it out for number one. Now I think there's a magnum opus above it, or a magnum opus above it. If you know what I mean. But I still think this is one of Nolan's best. It is the best comic book film ever made still, I think. It's just so well done. The opening scene itself is just a masterclass, and then you follow it up with just like 10 equally iconic scenes after that. I would say Daniel Day-Lewis's performance in There Will Be Blood is my favorite of all time, if it weren't for this one of Heath Ledger's. You know, you said the same thing about Anton Chigurh the year before. The very next year, he wins for the Joker. I mean, this is like the best stretch of supporting actors in a row that I've seen. It's just such an amazing performance. It is the film that like finally got me thinking about movies in a more mature way, I guess. I was only 10, but it was like me looking at movies and saying, oh, this is more than just like put it on for fun entertainment. Like this is a thing like that I love and that I'm passionate about and I want to talk about and I want to make my life. So yeah, I think it's an influential film for me, and I think when looking at the 50 years, my life, my love, 50 years of movies, like this feels like the movie of that year for me as a person, not just in quality, but just in connection too as well. So I just have such a deep connection to it. You said all the great things about it, but it's excellent.
And real quick before you go, Chad, I want people to understand that Slumdog Millionaire, it has so many things going on in it, but one of the main things, it's a romantic film. It's a love letter to relationships and not giving up on love, and realizing that that person, that special person, is out there for all of us, and it's just a matter of time. We can just wait, and some of us have to wait longer than others. I had a lot of crying in that movie because I just cared about these people so much. Chad, go ahead.
Jai ho, Dan. Jai ho.
Yeah.
Slumdog in particular, I watched like before I started like actually like diving into films. Like, I kind of like the same thing that Dylan said, you just pop on for fun entertainment. Like, that's kind of how I watched movies back then. And so I didn't fall in love with Slumdog Millionaire, but I'm extremely excited for when we do 2008 and I can revisit it over and picture this, because it's one that I'm wondering, is it going to be my favorite? We'll see. I don't know if that year with Best Picture, I don't think was a super stacked one, but especially because the film you guys both picked was robbed of a Best Picture nomination. So although I will say I wouldn't count that as my favorite comic book film, but it's probably my number 2. My number 1 will always be, I think Dylan might know,
Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2. Yes.
Oh, great. I screwed up on that year. I ended up picking City of God, and I screwed up again. I should have picked Spider-Man instead of Spider-Man. City of God.
The OG Spider-Man. City of God's a great film, though. But yeah, Spider-Man 2, I almost picked for 2004, but I went Shaun of the Dead instead. For 2008, I'm going to go a little bit different, even though I do adore The Dark Knight. I could easily just pick it just like you guys, but I just want to spread the love a little bit, and I'm going to pick In Bruges. Because I love Martin McDonagh, and he's just like been getting better and better and better. Obviously, like he's had since then he's gotten two films nominated for Best Picture, and honestly, I think rewatching In Bruges not that long ago, I think that one could have been nominated as well. I'm like, if oh shit, help me out. What was the last one?
Banshees of Inisherin.
Banshees are masterpiece. Magnum opus.
If Banshees could get nominated, I would say In Bruges could. Not because I think In Bruges is like leagues better or anything. I think they're both very similar. And that's because they both star the same two people. They're about like a lot of talking. They're about like talking about a place. Specifically, one loves Bruges and wants to be there and look at the sights. The other one freaking hates Bruges. And, there's just a lot of great comedy. A lot of great drama. I actually don't even want to say what happens, but there's a big, tense, like dramatic moment that happens. You're laughing, and then all of a sudden this thing happens. You're like, holy shit, okay. And then it like kind of like takes a dramatic turn, but it's still making you laugh at the same time. I do not know how Martin McDonagh does that, but he's like a great writer. So, he just like crafts these amazing screenplays. So yeah, In Bruges, I could have seen get a Best Picture nomination if Martin McDonagh was like today's Martin McDonagh then. So I also almost picked WALL-E because that might be one of my favorite non-Toy Story Pixar movies. So
no, it's great that they're really in a role there for Pixar. Pixar was, but
yeah.
No, In Bruges, I got the I think the Kino or whatever it was, and rewatched it again. I just love In Bruges, but Banshees. Oh my God, I can't say enough about Banshees of Inisherin. I think we talked a lot about that last year on Gone with the Wind, didn't we, boys? All right, so let's not talk about it anymore. So we're going on to 2009, and without looking at my phone here, I'm gonna say 2009 is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Quentin Tarantino, and he made my favorite of his entire filmography this year, and I I mean, the first 15, 20 minutes of that movie is probably some of the greatest filmmaking I've ever seen. And I've been watching movies for a long, long, long time. I think two people sitting at a table shouldn't be this exciting. And there's so much going on with Hans Landa and this farmer, this French farmer. And he literally speaks like 4 languages in the sequence. And he's like taking his jacket off, putting a spoon here, putting this here, lifting this up, move. I mean, it's just like all these hand movements, and he's speaking multiple languages. And this guy, you see this guy's face, he's just is melting off. He's so worried about getting shot by this guy and the girls under the boards, the boards of the house, and Shoshana. Au revoir, Shoshana. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anything so incredible in my entire life. And I've seen a lot of different tricks, camera things, CGI, you name it. All he did was have a script and have this guy say these words and move his hands, take his hat off, take his jacket off, do this, open a book. And it's some of the most gripping filmmaking I have ever seen in my entire life. Once again, best supporting actor. It was over months before the Academy Awards even nominated Christoph Waltz. Nobody even knew who the hell Christoph Waltz was. And this guy had already won the Academy Award at that point. And Michael Fassbender, Mike Myers, I mean, Brad Pitt. I loved Daniel Bruhl. I know he's one of the bad guys, but I love Daniel Bruhl in this German actress. Oh God, Diane Kruger. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, people always want to give Tarantino a lot of hell because he has revisionist history. Who gives a crap if he has? All that matters is the movie is good, and this is a great movie. And bar none, it's a great movie, and it's my favorite Quentin Tarantino film of all time. But that year, the better overall movie for me was a film called Brothers. Ooh, and it's basically about
he's not in that, is he?
What?
Is Jake Gyllenhaal in that one?
Yeah. Jake Gyllenhaal's in this.
And Toby
Maguire, two best friends in real life, I might add. It's about this Toby Maguire's character. He's off. He goes back to Iraq and he becomes a prisoner of war. And he's gone for months, like 6 months or something. And while he's gone, his brother moves into his house, starts dating his wife because his wife thought he was dead. And they start having a relationship. And then they find him. I mean, he gives an incredible performance in this movie, Toby Maguire. If you don't think Toby Maguire can act, watch Brothers. And he's
Sorry.
He's completely like loses all this weight. He hasn't been eating. He's just beside himself. He's not like a normal person. He doesn't look like a normal person. And then he comes back, and everybody's surprised. Sam Shepard, his father, is surprised. And then he starts getting into this argument. He gets into it like with his brother, and is like, I was surviving. I was in it, and you guys are dating and having sex, and I don't think I've ever seen the Iraq War pictured in this way before, or any of these Gulf War, Iraq War, or whatever. And a prisoner of, we've seen it in the Deer Hunter, Prisoners of War, and this sort of stuff, and Gallipoli or whatever. But I really just was so gripped by this movie. And it's not a movie that everybody knows about. I talk to people all the time, and people have never seen Brothers. They don't even know it exists. It's got Natalie Portman, Tobey Maguire, Jake Gyllenhaal, Sam Shepard in it. And it's a great, great, great film. And I want to champion this film because I think people really need to see this film. It's one of the most realistic portrayals of post-war, PTSD, all that kind of stuff. So, Dylan or Chad, I don't know whose turn it is to go first. Chad this time? Okay, Chad.
All right. Well, you know what Brothers kind of reminds me of? It's Pearl Harbor with that story. Yeah, because like they think he's dead and then he comes back and he's dating the okay. It's the same kind of story except better because I
Wait a
like
minute.
Brothers. I like Brothers a lot.
I was waiting for the but better part. I was like,
Yeah.
are they really the same? Now I get it. I get what you're
Because
saying.
I do think, especially, like I don't remember like the full story because it's been a while, but I do remember the acting being incredible, and you can't really expect. You named all the names; they're all great. So yeah, the incredible. Jake Gyllenhaal's one of my favorite actors, so I'll pretty much watch anything if he's in it. Even though I haven't seen every single thing he's been in, I kind of wish I would have been in the previous episodes so I could have picked Donnie Darko, but I wasn't. But yeah, my pick here. Oh, Inglourious Bastards, incredible film. Not my favorite. Dylan and I went over this. We have the same. It's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because we're insane.
Tarantino, yeah.
Yeah. But Inglourious Bastards is definitely up there. Top 3, I think, with Pulp Fiction. I also love Django and Chain. So it's like my top 4 right there. Great picks, Dan. And I was thinking about going with like a genre film. So I hope I'm not saying any of Dill's here with my honorable mentions. But the genre ones I was thinking about picking were Drag Me to Hell, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, because I think that one is incredibly underrated. And Jennifer's Body has grown on me so much since I first saw it. I thought it was fine, and then I was like, oh, this is actually kind of incredible, and now I love Megan Fox. But I'm going to go with the one that was number 1 on Picture This for me, Up in the Air. I love Up in the Air. When I first saw it, when I rewatched it for Picture This, I just think this is an incredible movie. It kind of reminds me of Michael Clayton because it is with George Clooney. I just think he's in so many incredible movies. He's great in all of them, and I love this one where it's just kind of like his whole arc about always traveling, and that's kind of a dream for some people who can't travel, but then he ends up finding out that he'd rather like find something stable that he can love, or someone, I mean, not something that he can love. And when he thinks he found that, he realizes that maybe he didn't, and his desire was so much that he thought he had it and he didn't. And just like a lot of the callbacks later in the movie from the beginning, I love the stuff with when he gives a lot of his miles that he earned to his sister and stuff, because like I don't know, there's a lot of really great stuff. Anna Kendrick is fantastic in this. It's all about like firing people, the art of firing people, and whether or not you can like actually like automate that. And who knows, maybe with AI coming out, maybe they'll start doing that. But I know it's a dystopia we're living in. But that's what Anna Kendrick wants to do, and then she realizes like these are people with lives and stuff like that. And when you do that, you can end up killing someone, just ruining their lives. And just the performances of the people that like get fired are just so incredible, because they're just like saying, look, you can't, we're not just the tasks to perform, we're people. I don't know. There's a lot of great stuff in this movie. I could talk about it all day because it's so good. Up in the Air, I love it.
Am I wrong? Is J.K. Simmons in this?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's one of the people that got fired, right?
Yeah.
And his reaction to getting fired is priceless.
Yeah.
Because he's not a happy camper.
He could have been, that could have been easily been like a Judd Hirsch like nomination for J.K. Simmons. It's so good.
Yeah. I did like Up in the Air. I think it really is one of the most realistic movies when it comes to working in the working class, where you deal with something that you don't think is something that is important, but it really is. People having to go around the country and fire people, and it's just not a fun experience, And for people that have that job, boy, I don't even want to get it. Jason Reitman is hit and miss with me, but this is one of his better ones he ever did. In my opinion.
And Juno,
yeah,
I adore. Oh my God,
Dylan, what do you got? Or do you have any thoughts on my 2 picks?
I mean, Inglourious Bastards was like my number 2, really rivaling that top spot. Up in the Air was probably like my 3 or 4, but I'm gonna knock 3 words off of Chad's title and just give you Up.
Of course.
That is my favorite film of that year.
Yeah.
this is like the stretch where, like, I mean, all these years Pixar was such a prominent part of my childhood, but like this next few years for Pixar was like my favorite peak of Pixar, and just the Best Picture nominated. It's an animated film, but it transcended being just a kids movie. There are fun, silly moments, kid friendly moments, the talking dogs, the colorful birds, the flying house, but at its crux, it's about a grief and an old man trying to like live out his life in honor of his late wife, and try to give himself the adventure he never had with her. And I think a lot of people say it's just that first 10 minutes, and the first 10 minutes is amazing, but I think if you rewatch it, it really does carry through the whole film, especially the last moments of the film make me cry even more than the first now, because of that whole full circle nature and the kind of closure it gives to him. And no comment on the short film released in front of Elemental, but it kind of changes a little bit of this film, but I'm not going to try to let it, because I love it so much and I think it's amazing. So I just think it's brilliant. It's got some great voice performances. Rest in peace, Ed Asner. Jordan, I forget his last name. The kid who plays Russell is great too. Just an overall really solid cast. Great messaging about don't meet your idols, because that's like a very popular thing, with Charles Muntz, and false ideologies and all that as well. So it's got a good humanitarian aspect in that sense, about saving animals, and it's got so much going on that I really love, and it's just one that's always been with me since I was young, and I've loved it ever since.
Yeah, I think Up is in my top 10 of Pixar films. I got some. I mean, maybe top 5. I can't remember. It's just so being the fact that the Pixar film movies came out when I was an adult.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't resonate with me like they did a lot of people in our constituents, people that are in the movie sphere, in the YouTube sphere, that are our age or my age. And there are a lot more of people that are you guys' age, the younger folks, but there are more adult themes in some of these Pixar films. And so that's the things in the Wall-E's and the Nemos and the Incredibles and the Ups that I kind of gravitate towards, more more adult themes, and that's what I love about Pixar in general. They have a mix. Their films are for everybody, children and adults, and that's why they're so revered. So all right, so let's move on to 2010. And not to beat this dead horse into the ground here, but everybody knows I'm from Boston, right? We know I'm a Beantown guy. Well, 2010, we got a movie that actually came out about somebody from my hometown that I'm from. I'm from a place called Lowell, Massachusetts, and that's about 45 minutes north of Boston. Orlando, I'm 45 minutes north of Orlando. I say I'm from Orlando. People know where Orlando is. There, you say where you're from. You're like, yeah, no. Lowell, you could take the purple line right to Lowell, and it's about a gentleman by the name of Irish Mickey Ward and his brother Dickie Eklund. And he had 8 sisters, and they lived in a tenement house in Lowell. They threw their trash in the backyard, or stuff that they didn't want anymore. And I mean, they're working on construction crews and stuff, but he's actually a boxer. He's learning how to box. And the place where you see him training in the fighter is a place that I've been to. My father would go there, play the numbers or do some gambling or whatever the hell he was doing in there while we were sitting in the car. So I remembered that place. And Lowell, when I grew up there, which was at this time, like I lived there in the 70s and the 80s. This is basically in the late 80s, early 90s. It wasn't a fun place to grow up. It wasn't a great place to live. It got better over the years, because I went back and there were some things that they did to improve Lowell. And so he grew up tough. Mickey Ward grew up tough, and he trained with his brother who was a boxer. And we all know the scene where he beat Sugar Ray Leonard, or he almost beat Sugar Ray Leonard. And then he got hooked on crack and all this kinds of stuff. And what when people are abused to drugs are the type of things they'll do everything. It's all about the next fix. It's about the next drugs. And so there was this kind of parallel story going on with the 2 brothers, and the mother played by Melissa Leo. And then all them sisters, I'm telling you right now, those are his real sisters in real life, Mickey Ward's sisters. And that's how people talk. That's what they did. They argue. Nobody could get a word in edgewise. That's how we were. I had 2 brothers and a sister, and my mother and a uncle and an aunt. They're all dead now. My mother, my aunt, my uncle are all dead now. But my brother and sisters are still alive, and we all live separate lives. And yeah, The Fighter, another boxing film, but it's based on a guy from Boston. So it really hit me hard. David O. Russell is one of those names you're not supposed to mention. I was told you're not supposed. He's getting canceled or whatever it is. So, but I mentioned him anyway. I just absolutely love The Fighter because it's about somebody from where I come from, and it's rare that you find a movie about somebody about where you come from, where people get a bird's eye view of what your upbringing was in a lot of the ways, And he did win that title. He beat Frenchman, I believe it was. That was everything you see. But The Fighter 2 is what I want. And Arturo Gatti, these two, Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti, had 3 knockout, drag-out fights. And it was just such a great rivalry. I want that sequel. But Mark Wahlberg is getting so much older, and it's just going to be so hard for him to play Mickey Ward. But I want it like a black and white with a foreign film director set, like where the subtitles were set from Arturo Gatti's. He's an Italian, set from his point of view, and you have subtitles, but it's also this rivalry between Mickey Ward and him. And Mark Wahlberg's playing Mickey Ward, but it's about the mere Arturo Gatti character, like getting, I don't know, Luca Guadagnino or somebody like that to do it. But it's The Fighter 2 from that perspective instead. That's how much I have invested in this material, But the other one is, I'm going back to Boston. Hey, well, you can't.
This is the one I thought you were going. Yeah, I thought you were going with that when you started with Boston, then you cycled back around to it.
The town. Ben Affleck, Jeremy Renner. What's her face? Traveling Pants. History of the
Hayden
Traveling
Panettiere?
No.
Blake Lively.
Blake Lively. Oh my God, is Blake Lively so good in The Town? Mm-hmm. Once again, another crack addict who's got a baby and she's lying and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But these guys are a high-end heist gang where they do these heists. And once again, a guy who's not alive today, Pete Postlethwaite. You might remember him from The Usual Suspects, but he is in charge. He's called the Florist. And he sets up these jobs, and they do. And what I love about it is the final job is they're gonna rob the Cathedral of Boston, and an FBI agent is played by John Hamm, and he's great. He's coming off of Mad Men at this time, and it's just so freaking great. Ben Affleck as a director he was just hitting his stride at this time. And he had like 2 or 3 movies in a row that were just phenomenal. And, but yeah, so I did my Boston doubleheader that on 2010 with The Fighter and The Town. So Chad or Dylan, it's your turn, I guess.
Yeah.
Take it away. What do you got? Any thoughts on The Fighter and The Town? And you got anything?
Yeah, The Fighter's great. I think the sequel would also be tough because you can't make Christian Bale lose all that weight again, or he might actually drop dead. But yeah,
you might not even have him in the story at this point.
Right, we might not have his brother in it, but a great performance in a great film. But The Town is one that I consider for this because I love it. I think Ben Affleck's a great director. This is my second favorite of his, next to Argo. It's incredible. Just so great. Just the tension, it's amazing. It's got some of the best heist sequences. But 2010, another one where I'm sticking with just like nostalgia. It's another Pixar. I'm going to do the back-to-back Pixar. I'm doing Toy Story 3 next. Just because I love it so much. It's my favorite Pixar film. Up is my second favorite, so there you go. I had to pick this just because it's the one that I've watched the most and I just love the most. It makes me cry the most, happy tears and sad tears. It's one that you can like grow up with. I was only 12 when it came out, but then I watched it again when I went to college, and it kind of hit this like deep emotional part of me. And when I'm a parent, I feel like I'll watch it back and have a different point of view as well. Like I think it's something you can look at different phases of your life, and really it could change your point of view and perspective. But it's also really funny, really well animated. The sound design is great. I'm glad it got those sound nominations. The Randy Newman score is an all-time great as well. This is my favorite of the 4, but it's, I think, a very consistent quadrilogy. But this is just the one that I've always just kind of gravitated to more than the others, probably just for that last scene alone. So Toy Story 3, there's not much else to say. It's, I think, a perfect film in a great year. 2010 is a great year.
Yeah, I don't want to say much, but I'm not the biggest fan of Toy Story 3, so I just
That's
will
okay.
say that.
That's okay.
That's your Departed, I guess, with me, because I'm right there with Dylan. Toy Story 3 is up there for me. It's up there for me. I adore every single Toy Story film. I think the fourth one probably to a slightly lesser extent than the main trilogy, but like if you said like any of that trilogy is like one of the best like animated movies, one of the best movies ever made, I would probably get, yep, you're right. So Toy Story 3 is the best, Toy Story 2 is the best, Toy Story is the best. If anyone says that I go, yeah, it is. You're right. But that being said, I have a lot on here that could easily go. I have another Edgar Wright, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I have The Social Network, which is fantastic. I have Inception, which is fantastic, and Toy Story 3. So I had like a lot that is just any of those could be like one of the greatest films ever. I'm gonna go with another animated movie. I'm gonna go How to Train Your Dragon. So well, let me speak on first before I get into that. Fighter I haven't seen. The Fighter and like Warrior are two that people go like, you haven't seen that every single time. So I need to check those out. I have it on Steelbook. I just haven't gotten around to it. And then The Town. I need to revisit that because Ben Affleck directed that. And I love like Gone Baby Gone. I like Argo. And so, yeah, he's a really good director. I love The Air. So, I need to revisit The Town, but I really liked it as a Boston movie. But yeah, How to Train Your Dragon, I think is fantastic. Kind of like Toy Story 3. It just has a lot of really deep messaging that I think How to Train Your Dragon can like heal societies. If they were to watch this movie, it's like way more than just a cartoon, just an animated movie or whatever. It's just like kind of a perfect movie to say what it has to say. Whereas like, to not judge a book by its cover, and to more than just that, but just to kind of rethink everything that you thought you knew. And it's such a hard thing to do, especially if you're like as old as the dad in, How to Train Your Dragon. Like you get kind of set in your ways as you get older. And, it takes a lot to be proven wrong, especially like someone younger than you, to say maybe you should rethink this, like maybe like to go into thinking about like the youth of today with like cancel culture. You brought up David O. Russell and stuff like that, to rethink like what is the correct thing to do. Is it different than how we've been doing it like our whole lives, or were we right and they're kind of out of line? And I think it's like a generational like thing, and that's exactly what it does. Is it forces the tradition of the society to challenge itself and change, and to look at these dragons. It's about silly dragons, yeah, I know, but it's about the dragons that are they actually bad, or are they just defending themselves from us? And we just got caught in this vicious cycle of hating each other. And I feel like so many wars are caused from that, so many just like hatred, the Hatfields and McCoys, and just like everybody that just kind of like a feud between two rivaling things. Are just like, if they would just sit down together and chat for a little bit, maybe they would realize that they're actually not enemies. They'd have common goals. So yeah, I think this is kind of a perfect movie. It's one that grew on me, and I think the franchise is like the trilogy. It's just like Toy Story for me. I have a little bit of more nostalgia from the Toy Story, but How to Train Your Dragon, I think, is like a perfect trilogy, and that first one is just extra so special. I think you could just have that one, and it can change your life.
Yeah, great picture.
Yeah, I absolutely love the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, and I think it's a tragedy that none of these have won Best Picture, Best Animated Feature. And I thought the third one was going to win it.
Yeah,
and I couldn't believe what won it that year. I was like, how the heck did How to Train Your Dragon?
4. Yeah.
It wasn't better than How to Train Your Dragon 3. It wasn't.
Toy Story's taken it down twice, and then the second time was Big Hero 6.
Yeah,
come
Big Hero
on.
6 was great. I love Big Hero 6.
All
But
right.
no,
It was all right.
I love How to Train Your Dragon. This is a phenomenal franchise. DreamWorks really hit the nail on the head with this video. But it's like animals. I want to compare something. It's like animals. Animals, people forget that, they think animals are more afraid of you than you are of them. They, trust me, they don't want to harm anybody. If you provoke animals, they will attack, And so when it comes to that, the dragon and the different cultures and stuff, this is in a world where people didn't understand a lot of things, this franchise took place in, and so there's a lot of great themes in How to Train Your Dragon. I absolutely love this trilogy, and they're trying to recreate it with Ruby Gillman and all these other. Now look, Shrek was crazy. I don't know how they did it. And How to Train Your Dragon, and now they're trying to do it with Puss in Boots and all this stuff. But man, they got the duck one coming out later. No, that's Illumination. My bad. That's Illumination. But yeah, I mean, I am not the biggest animation fan, but when I find something I love, I will champion it. I will talk about it. I do love that franchise of How to Train Your Dragon. All right, so let's go on to 2011. Now, this is the year that I told these guys off camera, I believe, that I had one. I was almost going to switch one of these out for something else. And because I set this in motion ahead of time, and I already have my article written and everything, I was like, I got to rewrite this part of the article and all that stuff. As you know what, I'm not going to do it. But I will say, very close to making it. And I do have two this year, 2011. I do have two. Again, was Hugo. This week I almost switched Hugo and Warrior. I came that close. You guys have no idea how close I came to switching Hugo and Warrior, because I love every time I watch Hugo, I love it even more and more and more. And I watched all the special features on the 4K that came out. Oh my God. And I came that close to switching Hugo with Warrior. But I didn't switch because I love the themes of Warrior. And I just think the performances between the three main guys in there, Tom Hardy, who's a brother, who's this kind of guy, he comes out of nowhere. He just comes back to his father's house. He's been on these drugs, these painkillers, and he says, you sound like you're had two maracas walking through the door. His father could tell he had the drugs in his sweatshirt. And then the father was played by Nick Nolte, and he was an old trainer, and he used to train his sons. And one of his sons something happened, and he left and went away. And then he came back, but one of the other sons stuck around and became a teacher at a local high school. He's got a family, he's got a wife and stuff, but he's kind of struggling for money because his medical bills and things like that. And Chad's going to experience a lot of that type of stuff here pretty soon. Kids need diapers, kids need medical, doctors, shoes, all this kind of stuff. It ain't cheap. So he decides he's going to start doing all these fights, these kind of bar fights where he's going to go and fight and make some extra money. But he shows up one day to school with a big bruise on his face. And the principal's like, what are you doing? And he basically tells the principal, he's like, dude, I need to make money. I got bills. I got medical bills. They're trying to take my house away, whatever. And so there's this tournament in New Jersey or whatever. And the one son who's really struggled with his life, he's kind of down in the dumps, begs his father to help him, Nick Nolte, but he says, well, this is what we're doing. This is the regiment. You got to get up at this time of day. None of this drugs and all this crap. And that's what he does. He ends up training the one son, but the other son finds a trainer who he heard. Turns out it's Frank Grillo. And in real life, Frank Grillo was a trainer, and he got into acting because they needed him to play the role. Somebody backed out of the role, and the rest of the history, Frank Grillo is an actor now. So Frank Grillo was on that side, and eventually these two brothers fight, and it's just like so great. I mean, even the announcing is great. I don't even know the guy's name, the announcer, but I loved him. Oh, we just got word. These are brothers. These two guys are brothers. This whole thing, and I mean, every time I watch Warrior, I like it more and more. And I decided not to switch Hugo and Warrior because I really think people should see this movie. And it's a great sports movie, but it's also about people and people's lives and people's struggles. And the father even has issues of alcoholism, and he's got his own problems, you know. The other one in 2011 is a movie that when I watched it, I was like, are you freaking? Because I read the book and I read all about at least a handful or 6 or 7 of Le Carré's novels, spy novels. And I had been dying for Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy to be made into a film, but couldn't actually live up to the book. And it surpasses the book. I mean, it blows the book out of the water. The cast is incredible. It's set in the Cold War, the 1960s. And it's got Ciarán Hinds, Benedict Cumberbatch, once again, Tom Hardy. Oh, 2 Tom Hardy movies. John Hurt. Oh God, I'm trying to name all the people in the movie.
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman is the main character of George Smiley. Should have won an Academy Award for this. Gary Oldman got robbed of an Academy Award for George Smiley. He was absolutely incredible. The one guy did win an Academy Award for the King's Speech.
Colin Firth.
Colin Firth is in this. Mark Strong is in this. I mean, it's if you want to see a movie, look, we all love like Mission Impossible and James Bond and all this type of stuff. But the best spy movie I have ever seen, Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. It gets spy so right. I'm just blown away by it. The circus and I mean, just all the ins and outs and the dialogue. People talk about this as being boring. I said, I was glued to every word these guys were talking about. You know, all the different stuff that was going on. So I those are my 2 picks for 2011. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And Thomas Alfredson. Oh my God, this guy went into freaking, he did an absolute piece of garbage after this and then disappeared. He did the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy. Does this film, does a piece of junk after this. Where the hell happened to Thomas Alfredson? I'll never know. But yeah, so there you go. Those Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and Warrior. Chad, take it away. Sorry, it took so long.
Dan, I think I'm getting what you're putting down. I think you're saying that I'm gonna have to beat the shit out of somebody for some diapers soon. So I'm getting in shape. I've got it.
You might have to, Chad.
I think, Yeah, so I like I said, I spoiled it. I still haven't seen Warrior in the 20 minutes since I said Warrior last time.
But you want to see it now. You really want to see it now.
I want to see that and The Fighter. I also want to see Tinker Tailor because I haven't seen that either.
Oh my God.
And we watch very different movies apparently.
Yeah, it's fine.
All the time.
That's why I had you guys on. I love to have different perspectives, and I'm glad you have a different perspective.
There's a lot of great recommendations I have. I have the whole list, written down, so I can take another look at it. There's a lot in 2011. I'll rattle some off. There's 2 I think Dylan might have, so I won't rattle those 2 off. But maybe after Dylan talks, I will. I have Source Code, Arthur Christmas, and Take Shelter are some really I think underrated films that I really, really like. But I'm gonna go with my genre film. This is my favorite in this franchise. If Dylan doesn't know where I'm going yet, it's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Great. I thought you were gonna go Cars 2. Whoops, my bad.
Oh, and I also meant to say Hugo is probably my favorite Scorsese film. So there you go. I like when he does the lighter ones, if you will.
Yeah. You want me? Okay, hold on a second, Chad. Okay, now you got me talking about Hugo. All right, so his daughter read this book and gave it to him. And when he saw that it was about preservation of film.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was like he had to make it. And then he has never worked with 3D in his entire career. Arguably, go look back on 3D in the last 10, 20, 30 years. This is arguably one of the best uses of 3D ever. Ever. Scorsese ain't messing around. Go ahead, Chad.
No, you're not wrong. I love that movie. But the reason, and also that's how I believe that's how oh God, Richard Harris became Dumbledore, is because his granddaughter or something read the books and said you should do it.
Bingo. Good point.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that. Like, hey, you should play this. Harry Potter. If anyone knows, I'm a huge fan of. I've been this way ever since like the 3rd grade. I started reading the books, and I've adored them. I saw the first movie when it came out, like midnight screening, and my mom was like always taking me to see them and stuff. So I grew up with this franchise, and 2011. This is what a way to close out a franchise. I think this movie is kind of perfect. It's got a very dark tone, but you still have a lot of like little lighter moments and just moments that are like cheerworthy, kind of like the get away from her, you bitch, and Aliens. You have the same thing with Molly Weasley, in this movie. You get McGonagall doing the Pierre Totem Locomotor. I've always wanted to use that spell. She's so giddy about it. You get Seamus Finnegan's finally getting to blow up something awesome, and using his skills for blowing stuff up for something really good. You got a lot of really great Neville stuff. And one of the like deepest scenes in I think any movie is all the Alan Rickman stuff. With the always with him, you have your mother's eyes and then dying, and just when you realize that he was playing a role this whole time and he was actually like a good guy, and he had to, but he is also a good but troubled guy. So it's just such a complex role that Alan Rickman had to play throughout all those films, and it really comes to a head here in this final film. And this is like where it started, for better or for worse, splitting up like one book into like 2 movies. But I think it works really well in this franchise, because I think part 1 and part 2 are both excellent. Part 1's underrated, I think, but part 2, I think, nearly gets what it deserves. Although I would have loved like a Best Picture nomination. I'm like, if all 3 Lord of the Rings can get that, why not give 1 to Harry Potter at least? Yeah. And I think this third, or maybe even the first one, could have all gotten something like that. It didn't, and that's okay. But I absolutely adore it. This and like the third one, I think, fight. And I almost chose the third one for 2004. And I chose Shaun of the Dead because I knew I was probably going to choose this one for 2011. It's just such a fantastic movie. I think David Yates knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, they split this at the right place. In that book, if you read that book, these 2 movies are as close to that book as humanly possible. Whereas you go to 6, it's so far off, and 5 gets. I mean, I like Phoenix a lot, but the torch one, the
4 is really, Goblet is really off.
Yeah, Goblet's off and 6 is off, but I like 5 off. But splitting it into 2 really did them a lot of favors, because it really allowed them to really go into a lot of that book, which it needed to be split into 2. I think where Twilight and Hunger Games, they didn't need to be split into 2. That's a bunch of crap.
That's arguable.
This is an 800-page book. How are you going to put 800 pages into a 2.5 hour movie? Come on, give me a break. Go ahead, Dylan.
You guys actually made it easy, because I had 3 movies written down, and one of them was Warrior, the other was Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 2. So I don't have to talk about those because they're excellent, and you both hit it nail on the head. I wish that year they had given it as a tie for supporting actor for Alan Rickman and Nick Nolte, because those are 2 of the best supporting performances I've ever seen. But the third one I had written down is actually one that's a little more unconventional, isn't really talked about a lot, but it's one of my favorite directors. that may be brought up when we get to 2013. I'm not sure. Steve McQueen, he did a film called Shame in 2011, which is, I think, one of the best character studies about depression and addiction that I've ever seen. Obviously, there's a lot of films that cover alcohol addiction and drug addiction, but this is a different type of addiction. It's sex addiction, but it's not made in a way that it's trying to like fetishize or mock or overutilize sex either. It's just very honest about a man who overindulges in something because of his depression and because of his compulsive addiction. And I think it's a very interesting film because of that, because it's something you could have easily made tasteless if you were in different hands. But I think Steve McQueen, I think it's visually one of the best shot films ever. I think it has my favorite performance from Michael Fassbender and Carey Mulligan, which is saying something. But Carey Mulligan especially breaks my heart in this movie. She has some of the best work of her career. It's something that I know a lot of people are hesitant to watch because it's NC-17 because of obviously nudity, but I think it's used in a very profound, artful way that's respectful toward the subject, and I just think it gets to the core of these people really well. It's just one of those films that broke my heart when I saw it, and I don't stop thinking about, because it's unfortunate, but it's one of those films that leaves a powerful mark because of what it is. And I thought it was an unconventional choice because there's a lot of great films. I know the other two Chad didn't mention that I might have picked were like The Descendants and Moneyball, and The Tree of Life. Yeah. Which are all teetering around there too. 2011 is a great year, but I think for Warrior, which is an underappreciated sports film, Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows Part 2, which is a big, phenomenal film, but not necessarily considered a prestige one by many people, but I think it should be. And then Shame, which I think is honestly one of the most heartbreaking but profound and important dramas of the past 10, 20 years. So that was my pick.
Yeah, I'll say something about Shame. You got any thoughts on Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy?
I've never seen it, but I'm going to. I know. I've seen Warrior though, Dan.
Oh my God, you guys have not.
You just
seen
did like a whole like liar thing, like
I can't believe you guys haven't seen Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Unless someone Tinker Tailored with my head, and maybe I did, and I forgot. But,
okay, but Shame, I'll tell you, it really is. I mean, I think it's one of the best. It's the best movie I've ever seen that deals with sex and sex addiction. And Steve McQueen, I just nailed it. I mean, the look of this movie, wow. Mm-hmm. Oh God. And then if you haven't seen Hunger, you should check out Hunger.
That's the one I haven't seen, because I'm a huge fan of Small Axe. I'm a huge fan of another film that we're going to bring up in a few years when we get there. So he's amazing. Widows. I love Steve McQueen. Underrated.
Yeah, he's amazing. Okay, so we're going to go to 2012. I mean, look, you could pick any movie for any. I mean, you could go on dozens and dozens. But if I picked another movie this year, I'd have a lot of people be punching me in the face. What the hell is wrong with you? Because the culmination of 5 years of filmmaking from many different filmmakers, starring many different actors, and something that had never been done before, a cinematic universe, and have multiple films interconnect and then culminate into one film, had never been done. It's like, are you insane? How could you possibly be doing? People aren't going to follow along with this. No one's going to care. Well, guess what? They cared. And they went in droves over and over and over and over and over. We've watched it dozens of times, all of us, I'm sure. And that's called the Avengers. The fact of the matter is, you got Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Nick Fury, Black Widow, Hawkeye, and you cram them all in together and make them work together in a movie and have a villain in Loki that we saw already in Thor, but he's just, if not menacing, more menacing this time around. And if I read Avengers 1, and I knew how amazing and incredible the early issues of Avengers are. Of course, we don't have the Wasp, but we hold the story of Joss Whedon said, "Oh, wait, the script was a little waspy," and then they decided to put Black Widow in there instead. We got the Wasp later on, so but the CGI, that scene when all the aliens they're all down on the ground in New York City and they're looking up and the Avengers are there and that camera's rolling around them, circling around them. I mean, one of the great moments in film history. And I there was nothing I was gonna pick. They could be some of the greatest films of all time could have come out in 2012. I wasn't gonna pick them. I was gonna pick the Avengers. And I don't know what you guys picked. If you guys agree, don't agree, whatever. But that's my pick for 2012, the Avengers.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I love it. It's I think plays even better in 2012 than it does now, only because it's tried to go so much bigger. But then because it's gone so much bigger, I think some of the recent stuff hasn't been as great. So it almost looks better now in retrospective. It's weird. It's had an interesting legacy in that way, and I think it's great. I did not pick it though. I picked a film from my favorite genre, which is coming of age. I went with The Perks of Being a Wallflower. It's another film about not about addiction, but about depression that I think is very important. And I think Logan Lerman is great as the lead. I think Ezra Miller is very funny. They do a good job in their role. But Emma Watson really is the heart of this thing. Seeing her act outside of Harry Potter was very big for me because I was like, wow, like you can do many things as a career. It was like something that I was like a young Dylan was like, oh, acting, this is how it happens. She's doing an accent, things like that. But it's just such a sweet story, but also a heartbreaking one, heartfelt one. I've watched this film, every few years as I've gotten older, and I've kind of changed my perspectives on it, but I still love it either way. But it just makes me think about friendships and relationships differently every time I watch it. And I think that's important. And the best films do that. I think it has some of the best needle drops ever. The Heroes, David Bowie needle drop, but especially the Come On Eileen. My grandmother's name is Eileen, so that's a very sentimental song to me. And that song, it's played at the best time. There's a great Rocky Horror homage in it. It's just like the quintessential teen film of this specific decade and generation for me. So I put it up here, even though kind of like what Dan said, like there's other films that I think are better films. Like I won't rattle them off, but they're better achievements of cinema. But I think for me and personally, like kind of how the Avengers speaks to Dan and the overall legacy and what it stood for in 2012 and the accomplishment, that's how I feel a little bit about Perks. It's like the more relatable one for me, despite me thinking maybe some others are better shot, better acted, whatever. I think Perks is my favorite. So
I love that.
Yeah,
I love Perks of Being a Wallflower. I think that I think it's one of the better. I mean, you get The Breakfast Club, you got like The Outsiders, you got American Graffiti. You got all these decades have a coming of age film like that with a group of people, and I think that year, that particular movie, Perks of Being a Wallflower, really was representative of those young people of that era, and it really was a very good film. I think Spectacular Now, I can't remember if that came out that year or not, but I love that one.
Next year.
Yeah. Oh, next year, 2013. Okay. Yeah. Those two were really, really good films. But Chad, you got any thoughts?
First on the Avengers, it's one of those things where, I think people kind of try, like exactly what Dylan said, like people try to just look forward when it comes to the MCU, but like some of those first ones like Iron Man, the Avengers, I think are just still really, really freaking incredible movies. And I just, it pains me so much that Joss Whedon is how he is sometimes, because I think otherwise he's an incredible filmmaker. I think like he knocked that one out of the park. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is one of my favorite shows of all time, and some of those episodes are so cinematic that if you watch those, you knew that he could go on and be just a great filmmaker as well. And then some of the other ones from 2012 I was thinking about picking were The Raid Redemption, I think, is a pretty incredible. Cabin in the Woods, great, another Joss Whedon kind of joint. Wreck-It Ralph, Dylan and I did a whole Disney ranking that ranked really, really high, and I was really thinking about picking that. Skyfall, fantastic Bond film, but I'm going the same place Dylan did. I love The Perks of Being a Wallflower. That's my number one. Yeah. So that movie, it just really floored me more than because I was like, what is this random movie? Like I know Emma Watson's in it, stuff like that. I just didn't know anything about it. Watched it. I was like, wait, this is like way more. Like all the stuff that Logan Lerman goes through in the movie, I just think is really incredible. Just like the whole mental health aspect and stuff like that, I just think is really great. Just like Dylan said with Heroes, Needle Drop, I just think that's like so incredible. I just love that whole sequence where they're driving and playing that and blasting that. I just love doing shit like that. So that's what I would like to see myself doing, is just blasting a great song. Being young, blasting a great song, stuff like that. Just a fantastic coming of age film. Ezra Miller is even really great in it. I don't know. I need to rewatch it. I haven't seen it as many times as Dylan has, but I think about it a lot because I think this movie is really incredible. It's kind of like a Little Miss Sunshine kind of thing, to where I'm like, I think this one could have been nominated for Best Picture, to be honest. I love it so much. So yeah,
Surprised you didn't go Django, but I'm appreciative that you.
I love Django too, but
it's hard to pick. Trust me, it's hard to pick. This is not an easy thing that we're doing. All right, so it looks like we've reached 2013, and I want to preface this by saying this: I was not on this particular year's episode of Picture This, even though I wish I had been on this year, because I think I listened to this episode at least twice. I probably want to listen to it again because I thought, of all the episodes you guys did, this is one of my favorite episodes. Nice. Without me on it, of course. Picture This, because every film in this batch of films in 2013 was absolutely, I mean, they had 10 films or 8 films or 9 films or whatever it was this year, right? 9, 10, something like that. I think 9. And they were all incredible films, right? I mean, Philomena, right? Gravity, Captain Phillips, right? All these all came out that year, right?
Yeah, Nebraska.
I mean, it was like an incredible batch of nominees. That's why when people, we have too many films nominated, it's still going to water down the... No. That year, you can't tell me any of them films are bad films. They were all Philomena. Every one of them was phenomenal. And guess what? The best of the best won. The one that should have won. And it deserved to win. Despite, picture this, despite our friends here, Dylan and Chad.
It was our winner.
Oh, was it? Never mind.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it wasn't Chad's number 1, but combined it was our number 1.
Okay. Was it my 2 or my 3?
Yeah, it was your 3 and my 1. So it ended up being our number 1.
I apologize. I thought you guys didn't pick it. I thought you picked Captain Phillips. I don't know why. I thought you picked Captain Phillips.
That was Dylan's number 2.
Yeah, Chad didn't like Captain Phillips very much. As much as me. Yeah.
But the film that deserved to win the Academy Award in 2013 should have won Best Actor. Absolutely. Dallas Buyers Club is incredible. Matthew McConaughey was incredible. But he wasn't Chiwetel Ejiofor that year. And he didn't give the performance of the year. Yeah, he lost a lot of weight and acted like he was going to die because he was doing drugs and all this stuff. Sure. But he didn't give the performance Chiwetel Ejiofor gave. And Lupita Nyong'o, out of Yale, straight out of Yale, she goes on this set, wins an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. Best Director. No. Alfonso Cuarón wins Best Director. How does Steve McQueen not win Best Director? I don't get it. I don't understand.
He didn't make Gravity.
Wow, Gravity's great, but it's not 12 Years a Slave. 12 Years a Slave is probably one of the greatest films of all time, in my opinion. Easily one of the greatest films of all time. The fact of the matter is that this guy is this innocent, go-lucky guy. He's playing his music, and he goes to Washington to go play his fiddle, and these guys kidnap him. I mean, this is a true story. They kidnapped this guy and put him into slavery. I mean, he's a free man who's just going there to play a fiddle. And then rags and tatters. That Bill Camp, I love Bill Camp, Paul Giamatti, Benedict Cumberbatch, Paul Dano. You guys like Paul Dano? You hated him in this. You didn't want to like Paul Dano in this. He was a nasty MFer in this. Brad Pitt was a nice guy, though. Benedict Cumberbatch, he was okay. But the nastiest of the nasty of the nasty, probably one of the nastiest people I've ever seen in a movie, and I've been watching movies a long time, Michael Fassbender.
Yeah.
I mean, nasty, nasty, nasty character. Steve McQueen. This is his third movie with Steve McQueen. I wasn't going to pick anything else this year, boys. I was always going to pick 12 Years a Slave, and it just so happened that you guys already did this year and picture this. So I got my 2 cents in now. So now it's your turn to say whatever you want to say. But you already did say a lot about this. If you did on Picture This. Sorry. Go ahead.
Me?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Give me crap. Give me crap.
No, I mean, 12 Years a Slave is fantastic. It was my number 3 of that year. It's just one that, like, you know, it's such a hard watch, but for like a good reason. Like, you know, just like Dylan and I were talking about on Picture This, it's like so great that like the story was able to be told by like a Black filmmaker. And
John Ridley wrote the script.
It just shows like so much pain in such like a realistic way that it's basically like Schindler's List. It's like so hard to watch, but you know it's fantastic, and you know it needs to be shown, because there's a lot of people out there that will try to play off slavery like it wasn't that bad. You know, we're so far removed. I guess we're not that far removed from it, but we are a little bit removed from it. So today you can, you know, think back on it and you go, was it that bad? It's like Steve McQueen is here to show us that, yeah, it was that bad. So this is the type of thing that we are doomed to repeat if we don't remember that. The same thing with the Holocaust and all these terrible things that happened. It's not like things like that can't happen again if, you know, people are left like unchecked, because there are people like that would want to continue doing things like that. There are still terrible people out there. It's a great movie. It wasn't my number 1 of the year, but like my top like 3 or whatever are all like kind of number ones. But yeah, there's quite a few on here. I think one could be Dylan's. I'm not sure, but I'm just gonna rattle off a few. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna pick The World's End, even though I love it so much and I think it's incredible. Another one, Short Term 12. I don't know if that was Dylan's. And The Spectacular Now that Dan already mentioned. There's one more I was going to mention, but I know Dylan really likes it, so I'm not going to say it. I'm going to go with one that I love, that I think it's completely underrated from this filmmaker, even though I think a lot of people around like the community, we all chill in a lot of the times, love it apparently, but you know, I like to champion. It's Prisoners from Denis Villeneuve. This is just one of my favorites. There's one part with the dog that I don't love, because, you know, but it plays into like the question of the character and if this character could have done it and stuff like that. But yeah, Denis has since gone on to do such fantastic science fiction films, some of my favorite films ever, that I feel like people forget Denis as like the thriller guy, and The Prisoners is one of those. It's like such a fantastic thriller. A lot of people love like stuff like Seven and things like that are of the same ilk, but I love Prisoners even more than that. There's so many movies like Zodiac, a lot of these great movies, that I like Prisoners even more. That's my favorite like of that genre, because I just love the whole, what will like a parent do, like what lengths will the parent do to get their kid back, because it's about a kidnapping, and then like, you know, what should you do, like what the whole vigilante aspect of it, like what should you do to what is your right as like a parent, you know, but what if you go on, you don't have that much information, you just go with the weirdest person that you see that was kind of like adjacent to things. Did he do it? Another Paul Dano role. Did he do it? I don't know. Watch Prisoners. You might find that out, because it's a fantastic film. Jake Gyllenhaal I love. You know, it makes sense why I love this movie so much. Shot fantastically by Deakins. So this movie is beautiful to look at. You know, Denis has gone on to make some of the best, but I think Prisoners is just so damn good. And then you have like the whole puzzle element, the whole mystery and story of the detective trying to solve the thing, but then the father's getting in the damn way. So you have a lot of these, you know, dynamics playing into it. It's just a really cool, hard to watch too. It's another hard to watch, just like 12 Years a Slave, but not easier to watch than that. But it's such a great gripping thriller that I absolutely love.
And I just want to make a point. Now, this could have been if there was 10 straight across the board, this had a chance to make it into the 10, but because they only had 9, this didn't make it, right?
Yeah.
I feel like this could have easily been
that was going to be the 10th. There's no way on earth Prisoners wouldn't have made it in as the 10th nominee. I think the fact that didn't get nominated was a surprise to a lot of people, a lot of pundits back then.
That one, and then Inside Llewyn Davis. I think it was supposed to be those two and not Philomena. Philomena was like the surprise.
But then when you watch Philomena, you realize, oh my God, this is a great film. It's like you don't think it's going to be a great film, but it's a great film. And it has a great, once again, another mystery in there that you're like, Philomena, what the hell is this? And you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Dylan, go ahead.
Yeah, I almost went with 12 Years a Slave, but I knew you were picking it. And when I think about like my favorite movie, I don't like to watch it, but it's amazing. I don't like to watch it because it's amazing. It's one of those like Schindler's List where it's so hard to watch, but it's because it's a fantastic, bout of filmmaking. And I did pick a Steve McQueen movie for 2011, so I didn't want to double dip there. I'm actually going to go with one of my Mount Rushmore directors, one of my favorite directors of all time. If anyone watched my top 13 of 2013 video, you know what it is. It's Before Midnight, the trilogy capper to my favorite trilogy of all time, the Before trilogy. I just love slice of life films where it's just two characters talking, especially when the script is so strong. This script in particular, he added Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke to the screenwriting team, so he didn't just write it by himself for Richard Linklater, but he wrote it with them. So you can hear just even more personality in these voices. I think what it has to say about relationships at this interesting phase of their lives where they're past marriage, they're not falling in love, but they're not old either. They're kind of just navigating middle age. And it's very interesting because that's not really focused on in a lot of films, but I feel like it's very important, if not more important than the getting together or growing apart phase. It's just kind of that middle gray area, which I really love. I think it's well shot. I love how every scene just gets to breathe and just be about the dialogue. I love movies that are like almost like plays where it's just very wordy, but I feel like the difference is before movies, they set them in such beautiful, luxurious settings that it feels like it doesn't belong on a stage. It still feels cinematic because of where they set it. This one's in Greece. I love Greece. It's my favorite place I've ever been to. So to see that Grecian setting with that story and those characters just roaming throughout it, talking about love, I just love it so much. It's a very me movie. I know it's not for everyone. I think this also could have gotten a Best Picture nomination. Maybe should have won. According to me, probably should have won. But I just think it's one of the best. It's my favorite trilogy. So I think to end it so successfully while also making it so different from the first two, because the first two, it's very much like, oh, look at these two people fall in love. And there's just such a different chapter in their lives. And who knows if they'll do a fourth one. It's already been more than 9 years. So it wouldn't follow the pattern. But maybe they'll make another one someday, before, I don't know, Moonfall. I don't know. Before the moon rises. I don't know what the last one would be called. Maybe it'd be like After Midnight, like, after all is said and done. I really don't know, but After Sunrise. There we go. Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. But 2013, another stacked year. Like these years are, every year that goes on, it gets harder and harder because more films get made, especially because these were movies that as I got older, I watched more films too. So it's just like, it's so hard to pick. But this is the one where, like, if I ever want to put on just a comfort movie, these movies always do it for me. So
yeah, and just to comment on your pick, I absolutely love this trilogy, and I absolutely love the second film. I think the second film is phenomenal. The first film is fantastic. I think the third film, I agree with you on one. The setting is amazing. I mean, it's gorgeous, but I just find these characters, maybe, and that's how people are when they get this age, just to be annoying. They just were annoying. I just wanted them to shut the F up. I was sick of hearing them bicker with each other and argue with each other. I know they had kids, so they're at that age where they're more mature and all this stuff. Maybe that's what parents are like, and maybe that's what what they were going for this time around. I don't know. But I was like, I'm not a parent. I don't have any kids. I don't have a significant other. Shut the F up. Leave me the F alone. I'm sick of listening to you people. And I loved the first two films. I mean, I loved the first two films. And I couldn't believe this one was so much of a step down, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you like it, though, Dylan. Look, I have it right behind me. I have the fourth trilogy right here behind me.
Yeah.
Right
It's a great box set. Yeah.
Right there. But I think the first two films are superior to the third film.
Yeah, I mean they're all great. I wouldn't, begrudge anyone putting either of them at number one. Yeah,
but go ahead, Dylan.
I was just going to say it's definitely one of those where I adore the first movie just because I think that is like the coming of age one where it's like they meet and they just talk and I think that's so nuanced and I just love Richard Linklater just in general. But it's one of those where I've only seen the entire trilogy once, and then I rewatched the first one with the wife, and I want to rewatch the other two and see if they hit me as hard as they hit Dylan, because I do think Richard Linklater is like the best at some of these like really interesting ways to make films. Like he did Boyhood was another version of this, just with one movie, and this is just like a trilogy that he did. I just think, but if you're going to have an actor do that with you, obviously it's Ethan Hawke, because that dude can do anything. He's incredible. I love him so much.
Yeah, I'm a massive Ethan Hawke fan. But well, that wraps it up for my life, my love. 50 years in film.
Say, Dan, we hit your 2 hours right on the dot. Nice job.
I know. And I just want to say thank you to Dylan and Chad. If you guys have any plugs, anything you guys want to plug, obviously we've been plugging Best Picture this whole episode because I love it so much. Yeah. Chad, Dylan, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, just picture this is the show that the two of us are on, and Dan's off and on. It's a great time just going back through classic years and more modern years, and just looking at every Best Picture nominee ever. That's on my channel, the Dill Pickle Movie Network. I also do reviews and all other types of shows on there. If you like something about film or TV, you could probably find it in some corner of that channel. So, but Dan, thank you. You've been such a great friend to that channel and have helped that channel grow, and I'm glad I could help be a part of this project for you, because it's been an amazing journey watching back those episodes, now being a part of it, and I love the way you talk about them. So thank you.
I know, you're welcome. Chad, you got any things you want to plug?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Picture This has been said ad nauseum, but it is a fun show, so check it out. A lot of episodes, a lot more to come. We're very excited about it. We're doing 1950 this month, so going to be very excited for that to come out. Some bangers that year. Also check out my channel, Chadwick Webb, where I rank things. Dylan's been on there. Dan has been on there. Dan's going to be on there again soon. And very excited about that. We've ranked a lot of different stuff, like Denis Villeneuve, Harry Potter. We're doing Mission Impossible coming up soon, which is going to be very, very fun, just like the franchise itself is very fun. Check out the Nerd Entertainment Network, where we have a show. Me, my buddy Hunter, my wife Carrie have a show called Welcome to Primetime, where we talk horror movies. We just started doing news again. But for a while we were doing like Buffy rankings. We were doing some brackets to try to figure out what's the greatest horror film of all time. Well, let's do some brackets of each of the decade, and then do one big bracket at the end to try to figure out what is the one. And then check out, of course, me on Letterboxd, just Chadwick Webb. I'm sure you can find me. And then check out my blog that I've been throwing some reviews, well thought out reviews on there. It's Clear Eyes, Full Heart Reviews.wordpress.com. I think that's pretty much it. Thank you. This was fun, Dan.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you guys for coming on. You guys are very busy people. You're a husband and a father, and Chad's got a lot of things. I mean, Dylan's got a lot of things going on. He's in productions of plays and things like that, and these guys are very talented people with very good lives. They did not have to do this, and I really appreciate you guys coming on here. And I knew you guys were going to come in and bring the heat and give me a run for my money on different, talking about different other films than the ones I talked about. You can find me at Dan Skip Allen on Facebook, not Twitter. Forget about Twitter. Instagram, Letterboxd. I do Pinterest for various things. Also, I'm a film critic in Orlando, Florida. I write for FromTheFourthRow.com and DisappointmentMedia.com. Also, I am a awards show pundit, and I do that with my good buddy Malcolm Lay. That's on the Picture This, not the pick, damn it. Take Three Productions channel.
Gone with the Wind, yeah.
Gone with the Wind on the Take Three Productions channel. These guys have been on there before. We had a 4-hour episode talking about our half best films of halfway of the year, about a month ago.
Just 6 months worth. Imagine a whole year.
Yeah. So, once again, thanks again, guys. This was episode 4 of My Life, My Love, 50 years in film. So for Chad and Dylan and myself, good night.